I'm reviewing the Sexton single malt. On the nose, grapes, raisins, just a lot of sherry. Not getting much of the classic Irish kind of notes, maybe a little bit. It's not pot still, it's a single column still, I think. Wrong, pot still. But it is a single malt. There's no unmalted barley in there. So that's kind of making it lose a bit of that Irish character. And it's sitting like somewhere weirdly kind of between a Scottish and an Irish style whiskey on the taste. So lots of sherry, particularly fresh grapes. Usually on sherry you get more raisins. This one you do get fresh grapes, fresh red grapes, raisins. You do get a little bit of that Irish character, but it is really buried in there. For the most part, this is a sherry bomb, very simple. There's no real evolution on it. It's kind of a I say one note. Kind of is, I'm not going to lie, it's a bit one note. But it's a pretty bloody good note. You know, if I'm factoring in value here, for the value, I really think that for the price, you can't get much better than this. And particularly if you're new to whiskey or you're trying to introduce someone into whiskey, it's a great pick because it's simple enough that tongue's not going to get confused. There's not going to be too many flavors going on at once, but it's gentle. It's 40%. It's gentle. It's nice. It's pleasant. It's sweet. You know, if I'm factoring in value, it's probably an 8 out of 10. Yeah, there's a little bit of oak, a little bit of salt. Nothing crazy though. Very subtle in there. A little bit of complexity. In terms of like similar products, you know, it's going to be a bit more expensive than a Jameson, but it's much better in my opinion. It's worth the extra cost. In terms of if I was just rating it not on value, so we're not taking money into consideration, we're just judging the whiskey based on the whiskey, I got to be a bit more harsh. It's probably maybe a 6 out of 10. It's the things that are really letting it down is the simplicity. There's not really any evolution that goes on, so it's the same kind of throughout. You get a couple of flavors. You get the sherry, which manifests as like that grape raisin sort of thing. A little bit of the Irish sort of spirit underneath that, and a little bit of the oak, but not much more than that. But it's really pleasant. There's nothing off-putting. There's no bitterness. There's no metallic flavor. There's nothing negative I can really say about it. So because it's got no negatives and it does have a couple positives, if I'm being objective and I'm rating it on just a blank scale, we're not talking about money, it's got to be a 6 out of 10. But once you factor in the price, once you go, okay, well, look, in my market here in Australia, I picked up this bottle actually really cheap on a good discount for about $55. Usually it's about 70, which, you know, in American money, the $55 I spent is about $25, or roughly 25 pounds. Yeah, I wish I could give more tasting notes. It's really, really dead simple. But in saying that, it's a strong recommend, honestly, because as much as I just said, it's a 6 out of 10, and it's simple. When you factor in the budget, it's good, and you got to go in with the right mindset. If you go in on the mindset that this isn't a special whiskey, it's not something that's going to blow your mind and take you into a new dimension of flavor. It's something that you can just sip on. It's nice. It'll probably mix well. I haven't had this with water or ice or mixed it into anything. I've basically finished the bottle and I've just had it straight the whole time because it doesn't need it. It's so gentle that, and that's why I say it's a great starting whiskey, because if if you're new to whiskey, if you want to get into it, it's brilliant because it's just so gentle and delicate, and the flavors are so nice. There's nothing off-putting. I got to stress again, there's no oak flavor, like there's no like excessive oak flavors. There's no like excessive bitterness. In fact, I would say there's no bitterness in this at all. It is just sweet, pleasant, nice, and for just turn your brain off, enjoy just drinking whiskey that you can kind of, for me, I think of it as a watching TV whiskey, something that you can just sip on. You don't need to think about it. You can just enjoy the flavors, enjoy what it's doing for a reasonable price. It's something you can always stock in your cabinet because it's not expensive. For that category, it's really good. I'm trying to think in this sort of price range. This would be up against like a Jameson Black Barrel, which I'll review later, or Silky. Heard of them? They're a bit newer. I got one of them in. I'm going to review that too. Powers. I've got, again, I'm going to review this. I've got the Three Swallows. That's a bit more expensive. I actually think this is better. For the price, 8, maybe even 9 out of 10, honestly. It's really good value for money, but it is simple. So I'd say get this if you're new to whiskey, especially if you haven't had a sherry to whiskey before. This is a really good introduction because it's got all those wonderful sherried flavors without the cost. Honestly, I would prefer this to an Aberlour. Now, that's going to be really controversial because I know a lot of people go feral for the Aberlours. This is better. I'm not going to lie. Yes, it's 40%. I'm pretty sure the Aberlour's 40% too, actually, the normal one at least. It's better. It's better. And in this market, it's way cheaper, about $30, $40 cheaper. So, value for money wise, you're not going to find a better sherried whiskey than this for the price. So, never had a sherried whiskey before? Try this one. If you like it, you probably like sherried whiskies. If you don't, you probably don't. I've shared this with a few mates on some whiskey nights, and none of my mates are really keen on sherried whiskies. So they drink this and they go, it's pretty mediocre, it's pretty mid. And I say, look, it's pretty cheap. It's not going to blow you away. And even when I gave them more expensive sherried whiskies, still said the same. So it's a really good whiskey to determine if you like sherried whiskies or not. So save yourself some money. Get this instead of something more expensive. I mean, the one that comes to mind is the Barnaharbin 12. That's the old one I gave them when I gave them this, and they said, I don't know, I like this. I was like, all right, let's put this to the test. We'll give you the Barna 12. They didn't like the Barna 12 either. In fact, they rated this about the same as the Barna 12, which I wouldn't do. If we're factoring in value, I would. But, in fact, I might even be a bit harsh on the Barnaharbin 12 for the value, because over in this market it's very expensive. But if we're talking pure taste-wise, it's actually pretty similar. Yes, it doesn't have the power. It has slightly less complexity, but it's nearly there. And it's half the price. So, half the price, nearly as good. I'd say 80-90% as good. You can't really go wrong. So, now that I'm having another sip after I've gotten used to the sherry, we're getting a little bit of caramel, a little bit of butterscotch. Yeah, nothing crazy. Pretty simple. Pretty good. I strongly recommend. If you haven't had it before, give it a try. That is if you're looking for something generic. If you're looking for something crazy, something interesting, you're not going to find it here. If you like this, or if you like the Black Bush, you're good. They're my personal favorite sherried whiskies for the price. You can't get better. And in fact, even if we're not including the price, the Black Bush and the Sexton, probably the best. Honestly, if I'm being for real honest, best sherried whiskies that I enjoy. Yes, they've got problems. The Black Bush is, for me, I noticed a bit batchy. I had it, the first time I had it, I was blown away. I was like, wow, this is incredible. Second time I got it, wasn't as good. It was a lot more bitter, a lot more oaky, and a lot less complex. So I don't know if I just got unlucky or whether it is really batchy. I really don't know. As far as I've seen, I don't know of any information out there, um, but yeah, that's my recommendation. Give it a try. It's pretty good.